Well, welcome everyone to week 8 of Business 501, the last chat of the session for Introduction to Financial Planning. And this evening I am delighted that we're going to start our final chat with a guest lecturer, Alan Ungar. Alan Ungar is an MBA CFP. He's a member of the Financial Planning Association, former president of the Ventura chapter, and a real leader in our community here in getting the word out about the organization and giving to the community and many of the planners in this area. He's also been a key member of the Financial Planning Association's task force for the Social Security reform. He's been with America Speaks. He is an author of 2 books. One is called Financial Self-Confidence for the single person or the suddenly single, right, Alan? And also in stock options. He is a frequent visitor to the classes because he's just so willing to share. And this evening I'm delighted that he's going to be here to talk to you about getting started in the business and building your practice. And Alan, with no further ado, again, let me just voice everyone's welcome for you being here this evening.
Thanks, Harry. It's a pleasure. I'm excited about talking to your group. As I understand it, a lot of you who are starting are second career people, and as was I when I got started 32 years ago. And I started much the same way you're starting, which is to get your CFP. And I have to say that when I got mine, there wasn't as much value in it from a marketing standpoint as there is now. But there was tremendous value in taking the CFP course because I didn't know anything when I started. And when I completed the course, I at least knew the universe. I didn't feel as if I were an expert in anything, but at least knew the universe. And that gave me a whole lot of confidence, and I think it'll do the same for you. It's a great industry. Welcome to it. I love it. One of the nice things about this industry is there's no inventory and there are no receivables, and you get to help people and you get paid at the same time. So it's good, and I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I have. I thought that maybe what I could help with tonight is instead of talking about financial planning per se, I thought I'd talk to you about marketing, because I think that it's learning all the formulas and so forth is one thing, but learning how to market yourself and to get in the business, I think is probably more difficult than anything. And so the way I thought maybe it would be useful is to tell you a little of my story and share with you the lessons that I've learned along the way. But also I want to do something, which is I'll tell you my story, and then I'd like to ask you what lessons you think come out of my journey. It's not a test. You're not going to be judged on it, but then you show me your lessons and I'll show you my lessons. Let me just first tell you a little about the practice. It's a very small practice. We have about 46 clients and a little under 65 million in assets that we manage. We're fee only. Our investment philosophy is passive. We do not do active investing. Now, how do we get to this point? By the way, it's small by choice. I feel very strongly that we can give more service to fewer clients, but at the same time, you have to have the kind of revenue that will support the practice. I'm 75 years old. I'm in the process of succession, and which is got a little story in itself. But let me start by how I did get started in this business. As I mentioned, this is my second career. Oh, and by the way, you probably don't want to, you'll probably have a lot of questions, and I'll be happy to answer them all, but I'll go through the journey first. But if you have something that you're dying to ask me along the way and are afraid you'll forget it, then just let me know and I'll be glad to answer the question. I was in the garment business. My wife and I were manufacturing women's accessories and ready to wear, and we were in that business for 15 years, 14 of which were great, but the 15th was really a bitch, excuse my language. But I happen to believe that, and so we ended up going out of business the wrong way, and I happen to believe that every problem is an opportunity. And at the time, I was putting on a high school reunion, and this guy came over from high school, and he started talking about financial planning. And I got real interested in it because, like, how can you make all that money and not have more when you're done? And so I looked into it and found out about the CFP and became a CFP. And then I got all my Series 7 and all the licenses and opened up shop by myself. Now, at that time, my routine was I get up in the morning and drive down to the Mid Valley Racquetball Club and play racquetball. And at that time, I went to the broker dealer was Titan Capital, and everything was done by commissions. Um, Actually, let me step back just one step. I'll try to have this in a cohesive way, but I'm not speaking from notes. When I finished the CFP, at the time, we never wrote financial plans. I didn't know how to write a financial plan. So I started looking for software, and as I looked, I realized that how can I buy software? I don't even know how to write a financial plan. So I started doing my financial plans with the yellow pad, and eventually I ended up getting software. But anyway, at the time that I started in the business, mostly it was a commission business. The whole fee thing hadn't really started. And at that time, tax shelters and limited partnerships were the main assets that people were using. And I decided that if I were going to sell that stuff, that I needed to do it through CPAs. So my first decision was that I wanted to work with CPAs. And I started doing seminars with CPAs. The idea was to get to know them better and take them out to lunch. And that really worked, although most of the business that I got from CPAs were CPAs that I had met at the racquetball club and at my health club. Along the way, a client came to me who had a tragedy happen to her. Her husband was a police officer, and while he was picking up his 5-year-old at school one day, he was machine gunned down. And it was a pretty tough case. Anyway, with all the clients that I worked with at that time, I wrote financial plans. But then how I got paid was by selling product. And I justify the sale, but nevertheless I had to make the sale or I wasn't going to get paid. So the plan was really about justifying the investments that I had to sell. And when I started working with this client, I found myself doing the same thing, and I realized this just wasn't the way to work with clients. And that's when I started to turn towards fees. And so that was one iteration. And what happened after I worked with this one client is that I ended up getting other police widows and was sort of developing a niche by working with them. And I happened to go to an FPA continuing education session, and I heard this guy speak, and he said, people used to think of me as experts, and then I wrote a book and they thought of me as an authority. And I thought, I can do that, and I've certainly got a specialty. And coincidentally, next week, UCLA came out with its extension courses, and one of the courses was how to write a best-selling nonfiction book. So I went and took the course, and it was mainly about marketing your book. But anyway, I wrote a book. It's now called Financial Self-Confidence for the Suddenly Single, A Woman's Guide. And it was more about establishing myself as an authority and a niche than it was about selling books, because frankly the book didn't sell worth a darn. The only people who bought the book were other financial planners to give to their clients. Then as time went along, excuse me, practice sort of evolved. The whole tax shelter business and limited partnership thing sort of fell apart, and I ended up sort of reinventing myself, which is what happened to a lot of planners during that period. I took on a partner, and with the idea that he would be able to succeed me, and we had a couple things happen. First of all, we got a client from Countrywide. You've all heard of Countrywide Mortgage. company, and this client had a ton of stock options, and he wanted to know what to do with them. When should he exercise and when should he sell? And we had never had a client like that before, and said, well, how do you help a client figure this out? And we realized that most people, when it comes to employee stock options, they think, number one, how can we make the most money? And number two, how can I save in taxes? We felt that the value of stock options was in their leverage, and that what was really important about them was how could they help people reach what we call critical capital. Critical capital is the amount of money you need in order to make work optional. I'll tell you all about that at a later time. But so anyway, then we started getting other clients from Countrywide and realized that we had a new niche, and decided to write another book. It was entitled Your Employee Stock Options. It was written by me and my partner at the time. And we were doing quite well, and we had the book written, and it was published by HarperCollins. They paid us $50,000 up front. Excuse me for itching my nose, but anyway. So right before the book came out on the market tanked, and so much for that particular niche. Another thing that happened when my partner with this particular partner, I say this particular partner because he was a partner of mine for a short time. Unfortunately, he died from cancer, which was a very sad thing in my life, and led to another thing, which I'll tell you in a minute. So anyway, Mark and I we were having a hard time justifying some of the assets that we're putting people into. And we were in the process of considering using passive investing versus active investing. Now, if I understand correctly, Harry, this is a beginning course. Is that correct?
Yes, this is the introduction course.
Into passive investing and active investing. Okay, but in any event, we switched to passive investment, and I'll be happy to answer questions about that later on. So that was another change that we made. And but just as an overview, it's a very conservative way of managing portfolios. It involves using mainly index funds and passive funds versus actively managed funds. And then I decided that since I really needed to plan my succession, although I have to tell you, this is the kind of business you don't really ever want to get out of. It's so much fun. I took on another partner, and step back. I was continuing to work with widows, and I was also having to deal with my own grief, having lost my partner. And so I decided to learn more about it, and I took a course and became a grief recovery specialist, which was helping me deal with my problems, and also helped me work with people who were dealing with sudden loss also. And so then I took on a new potential partner, and we became what's called sudden money advisors. And what that means is that we work with people who are in transition because of some sudden money situation, whether it's a death or divorce or stock options or something like that. And the reason for it, the reason we've sort of narrowed in on that, is that it really differentiates us by being sudden money advisors, because being a sudden money advisor involves a lot more than just trying to figure out what the problems are in terms of the financial planning and investment and so forth. It really involves trying to make sure that we understand the emotional needs of our clients, and to make sure that their financial goals and the way we handle their finances are in sync with what's going on with them. And people who are in a sudden transition like this often need that kind of help and empathy. Too often they make decisions before they're ready to make decisions, and before they've really had a chance to identify what their goals are. So anyway, that's sort of the journey. It's taken us to where we are now. I believe in niche marketing, and we're still doing that. And at this point, I'd just sort of like to open it up and ask you, if you were in my shoes, what lessons would you have learned from this journey, or what questions do you have? And then I will share with you the lessons that I have learned, and go from there.
Good. Well, show me with the raising of your hand. Who has a question? Okay, Bruce, let me give you the mic. Go ahead, Bruce. Make sure your microphone's engaged.
Sure. It takes just a little while. You got me?
Gotcha.
Okay, good. So glad that you're our guest speaker tonight. One of the things that I picked up on, and am actually uh, thinking about myself and my potential journey. I'm currently an officer in the military, going to transition hopefully to financial planning. But once upon a time, worked for Edward Jones. Is the passive investing, and what I mean by that is, did you learn in your journey that passive investing yielded the same, uh, overall return better than the aggressive marketing of particular investments?
Well, let me answer you this way by saying that, in fact, I'll kind of describe the tug and the pull that we had. We were using all no-load funds. At the time, we were fee-only people. Fee-based at that time, actually. Now we're fee-only. But and we had, we were doing asset allocation, and we were using active no-load funds. And we kept reading about passive investing and how it really works better than active investing, because the fees are so much lower. There's no not a lot of there's hardly any trading. There's the fees are lower because you don't have to have a big research section to finance. And but our tug and pull was, well, if we're going to use passive investing, what do the clients think we're doing for them? And one year, one of the funds, it was Crab Hewson, which was a small cap value fund. This guy had a terrific track record, and that particular year, his fund was up 7%, but the small cap value asset class was up 27%. And so I called him. I said, "Hey, Jim, and by the way, some of the brightest people around manage mutual funds and manage investments." I said, "Jim, what happened?" He said, "Well," he said, "I thought the market was overpriced, so I went short." And that was kind of it for us. We realized that we really weren't adding value, that our real value to clients was in making sure they stayed invested and reached their goals. And so we made the switch, and I have to say to you that it's probably one of the best decisions we ever made. I also have to say that it really, when we take on a client, we have what's called a discovery interview, which is a legitimate interview, and I say legitimate from the standpoint of we're honestly trying to see if there is a match, and whether we can add value and whether they get to see whether they want us to. And so, for example, if I've got a potential client in front of us that's only interested in return, then passive investing isn't for him, because it's going to model what's happening in the market. The key to it is how, what kind of allocation you come up with. That's sort of a long-winded answer. I hope it answers it.
It did. Thank you very much. That's precisely the feedback I was.
Thank you, Bruce, for your question. And David, I'm going to hand you the microphone now. And there you go, David.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I thank you for talking to us tonight, Mr. Unger. It's a pleasure listening to you. I had a couple questions about software. You mentioned software you use. Is it proprietary software, or did you go out and find some software that you like to use in your financial plans in your business? Because sometimes it's very difficult. I do some financial planning myself, and it's hard to find software out there that I like. So I was wondering what you use.
Yeah, we had the same. part of the problem with software is you have to do what they say. So, am I on?
Yeah, go ahead, Al.
So our software is proprietary. It's an Excel worksheet that is linked to a tax program. And one of the reasons we decided to do that is you just have a lot more flexibility that way. Uh, and we're thrilled with the software that we use. The disadvantage of that is that when you're doing your own software with Excel, or that you've got to keep track of everything. It's it's you can make mistakes, but anyway, the answer is yes. Ours is proprietary. It's an Excel worksheet that we've created, and
Dave,
it does everything.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alan.
It does everything. I mean, it does. It works.
Yeah, David, I'm going to give you the microphone back because I know you had another question. There was a little bit of echo there. So go ahead, David. The mic's yours again.
Okay, on your fee structure, I know you transitioned over from, it looks like commission to fee-based.
Yes.
Do you have some kind of graduated scale? How do you charge clients your fees? At a graduated scale? Do you start out at a certain percent on a certain dollar of assets? And how?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we charge for a financial plan, and we charge at the rate of $250 an hour. And by the way, we don't take on any clients unless we do a financial plan for them, because you really can't do a job of recommending anything unless you've done a plan, in my opinion, in my not so humble opinion. So we charge $250 an hour, and usually that amounts to anywhere from $2,500 to $10,000. Then when a client implements with us, we charge a fee for assets under management. We charge 1% for the first million, 0.75% for the next 2 million, 50 basis points for the next 3 million, and then 20 basis points.
Hey,
There's a lot of people now are just charging a flat fee as opposed to assets under management, but we haven't switched to that.
hey, Alan, a small follow-up question to what you this line of reasoning about what do you charge for fees? Or I see a lot of planners who undervalue their services, and I was just wondering if you could share with the group. I think the first thing it comes down, we have to understand our own value so that we can put a number on that and we can stand there in front of our clients knowing that that represents value. Can you share some of the mindset you have about just the value you bring to that relationship for the fees that you charge?
Yeah, actually, I could take you through a little transition on that one too. When I first started, I was on commission, and I went to another FPA thing. By the way, if you're not involved with FPA, I really recommend you do it and get involved early. But anyway, I remember hearing this guy talk about, if you're not charging a fee for your planning services, you're making a mistake. So, and the perception of clients is that all you're trying to do is sell something, which is true. But anyway, I started charging for my services. Like, I think the first one was $25 or something like that. But it was very interesting to me how clients' perceptions changed. And I'll give you another example of that. I was in the garment business, and I had decided that I would, go after people in the garment business, which is a whole nother story. But and so I dressed like that, and somebody said, people judge you by how you look. So I started putting on a suit and tie. I remember at the club, people started calling me Mr. Ungar and Sir. But in any event, I think I'm not answering your question exactly, but Harry. But one of the reasons we charge a fee is that's the only. If you don't charge a fee, people perceive that either you don't value your service or you've got some other motivation. Furthermore, whenever I do a plan, I ask for money up front, because if you don't get money up front, there's no skin in the game, and it's really hard to get the data. So I can say this, Harry, that when I first started, I didn't perceive the value as much as I do now. It's one of the advantages of being in the business for a long time. But I can unequivocally tell you that once you've gotten the CFP course and you know the universe, you will be able to add value, and you should charge for it.
Thank you, Alan, for answering that. And Michael, let me give as you can see, we have a lot of hands going up, which I knew we would tonight. Michael, the microphone is yours.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Can you hear me, Harry?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, Alan, thank you for sharing your story. One of the messages I took from what you explained to us was your need to be extremely flexible in where you were focusing your efforts in the financial planning industry and having the wherewithal to adapt your style to your niche client base, meaning changing from what you were doing for the widows from the commission to a fee-based structure. That made sense and makes sense. Um, in regards to, for me, I'm looking to get into this as a second career and interested to know from your perspective in regards to, when first trying to break in, does it make sense to target a niche environment or to go more the full spectrum financial?
Good question. And one of the lessons, let me share with you one of the lessons that I've learned in as long as I've been in business, which is that it's, first of all, I do believe in niche marketing, and if I were starting out again, I would do that. But the problem is, how do you create a niche and discover one? And one of the things that I discovered along the way is it's really important to pay attention to what's going on around you. So, for example, I just kind of stumbled into the first niche with the police widow. And that just sort of happened naturally. And the same thing with the stock options. But one of the things that I discovered along the way is that people do business with you who like you and trust you. I mean, this business is all about trust, by the way. But right now, for example, my associate is involved in a marketing plan, and part of the plan is around our niche. But the way he's going to get business is by meeting CPAs and by getting close to them. And one of the things that what he likes to do is he likes to swim. So he's now swimming in a master swim club with a CPA organization. And that's, he's going to get business out of that. So anyway, again, a long-winded answer, but I think that trying to think in terms of niche is really important. I'll give you another example. I was doing some speed mentoring at the last FPA conference, and a fellow sat at the table who is a musician, and he's thinking about getting in this position, in this business, because musicians and publicists and so forth, they need financial planning. Right, they absolutely do. And what we just talked about was a specific problem that these people have, which is how do you track royalties and residuals and so forth. So he's got a niche that he can take advantage of. And so anyway, if at all possible, if it comes to you, it's not the easiest thing, is I would try to create niches.
Yes, thank you, Michael, for a great question. Ken, I'm going to hand the microphone to you, and it's yours. Go ahead.
Ms. Ungar, for your stock options, do you use Excel to track them and when to strike and all?
Yes, it's part of our software. We use. Let me make sure I understand. Do we use Excel to track the stock options? Yeah. Let me just give you a little hint on that. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, the key to, in my opinion, the key to the stock options, the only value of stock options is their leverage. So you want to manage the leverage, and whenever somebody's in the money and they only have about 30% leverage, I feel that's a good time to be exercising and selling. By the way, not to pitch my book, but if you have any desire to read more about that, you're welcome to You're welcome to go to my website, ccmiplan.com, and download either one of my books at no charge, and learn more about that if you want.
Thank you, Ken, for your question. And Aaron, the microphone's yours.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So you've been in the business for a long time. It sounds like you've probably seen a lot of evolution take place in it. And I'm thinking with the emergence of the internet and as a marketing device, but also as a communication device, there's a lot of these financial planners that are now using the internet for virtual practices, where they have clients that are in other states that they don't actually meet face to face, but more so in an environment kind of like we're meeting in tonight. Have you ever had clients in that virtual environment? Would you recommend it, or would you recommend not doing it that way?
Let me answer that two-part question. First of all, yes, I have clients in New York. I have them all over the country, and we use GoToMeeting. And generally, when I get a client like that, a lot of times we'll do the discovery interview over the phone, but on the first meeting, I'll fly there to meet with them, and then the rest of it is done virtually. But let me just tell you a little story, because you might appreciate this. I think I told you I have a fellow who's associated with me, and he's a young guy. When we're trying to figure out how to increase his business, so I said, we'll do it the way I did it, which is we'll do CPA seminars. You'll get to know him, take him out to lunch, and the rest of the history. And so we started planning that. One day he came in to me and he said, you know what? Instead of doing seminars, they're expensive and they're hard to get people there. We ought to use social media. And I said, oh, come on, I never pay attention to that. That doesn't work. So that was the end of the conversation. The next day he comes into me and he essentially said to me, Alan, you're really old. I'm young. That sort of marketing will appeal to the people that I'm going to appeal to. And he was right. So we're doing social media now, and we do webcasts and so forth to a very specific market, to the CPA market, using what we know about sudden money as a marketing tool. So I believe in it now, but I have to say that it still comes down. I don't believe that it's an effective way. Let me step back. I don't think that it's an effective way to do retail marketing. But I'm not absolutely sure that. I just don't believe in retail marketing, because I think the best business comes from referral sources. And so my focus is, zeroing in on marketing to potential referral sources, and not doing mass marketing. But you'll probably talk to other planners who have a different point of view on that.
Thank you, Aaron. And Kelly, the microphone is now yours.
Hi, Alan. Thanks for coming and talking to us tonight. I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on your niche. Are you still in the same niche that you were in when you started, in regards to helping those who have recently widowed, or with all of a sudden they have like a big cash settlement or something like that? Or did your niche ever change over time, or did you ever see yourself getting into different niches as the market evolved or anything like that? Or did you strictly stayed in the same niche and did that over and over for the...
Actually, what's happened is we've sort of broadened the niche, because my favorite clients are working with particularly widows, and the reason for it is that they appreciate it, and they'll do what you say. And what I get the biggest joy out of, actually the best example I can give you is a woman that came to me actually 5 years ago, and her husband had handled all the finances, and she was all of a sudden faced with having to make these decisions and didn't have a clue how to begin, and was scared. And it was such a I got such a sense of satisfaction out of working with her and getting her to the point where she was comfortable making her own decisions. She even took a trip to Paris, and she was afraid of doing that sort of thing. She bought her own car, and so I really enjoy working with those people. To answer your question, the niche is the same. We're still honing in on it, but the whole sudden money idea is something that I feel very strongly about, and we're still focusing on that kind of client.
Thank you, Kelly, for that question. And let's see, David, let me give the microphone back to you, and there you go.
Thank you. You say you do financial plans. How often do you update the financial plans for clients? Because you're charging about $250 an hour. Are you every year doing updating the financial plan, meeting with the client, and continually monitoring their plans, and are you charging on top of the 1% or 75 basis points, whatever it may be? Is that done each year too?
Good question. No, we update the plan on an annual basis when we can get the data from the client. But there is no additional charge for it. Every 5 years, we create a new plan. Our particular plan is so flexible that when things happen, which something always is happening, somebody wants to buy a new house or buy a new car or something like that. So we can plug in whatever it is that they're going to do into their plan to see how it affects their goals. But yeah, we update it on an annual basis, and every 5 years we write a new one. Sometimes it's not easy to update it because clients don't want to bother sending in the data again. But that we want to update it every year. And of course, we update they get a quarterly reports on their investments. So that happens regularly. But there's no extra charge for it. There's no extra charge for working with their family members either.
Go ahead, David.
On the quarterly reports, do you send them out? Are you generating them yourself, like through an Advent software or something, or do you have a back office support staff that helps? How do you do that?
We actually, yeah. Well, as you know, there are a couple of ways you can do it. You can outsource it, or you can do it inside. We chose to do it inside, and the reason for that is that, first of all, in using passive investing, there's not a whole lot of trading that goes on, and so to give up the basis points that you need to give it outside didn't make any sense. And also, we have few clients, so we do use Advent software, and what we do is we take the Advent information that we got and we put it into an Excel worksheet, and that becomes the report that we send to the clients. What we do is actually every client has a lockbox, and so we download their reports to their lockbox. The ones that don't have a lockbox on our website, we will send them a hard copy.
Yeah, there was great questions from everybody tonight. I know there was just a couple of people who have been quiet, so I'd like to give the microphone to them and go back to Alan's first question. Were there any ahas from this discussion? Was there anything in his path that really stood out to you that maybe you would have had some learning takeaways? And so, Di, if you don't mind, I'd like to give the microphone to you and just share any thoughts that you might have from Alan's discussion. Make sure your microphone's engaged, Di. Okay, she might be having some problems right now. Mo, if I can give the microphone to you, what comments might you share?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I like the idea of focusing on a niche instead of just going out there and take everyone in, and also the idea of passive management. uh, those are the two takeaways that I get.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Mo. And Alan, I totally agree with the figuring out the niche, those people you enjoy working with who can really help. And you, like you said, you can establish yourself as an expert in that space, right, Alan?
Yeah. And let me say something else about that too, because I think one of the hardest things about the business is how do you get into it. And when somebody comes and they want to do an internship, first of all, there aren't that many that are available, but it's a lot easier to get an internship or a job with a firm if you've well defined a niche and you can tell those people this is how I'm going to get business, or this is what I'm going to do, or this is the specialty that I'm going to bring to your practice. If you just go in and say, I'm learning the business and I want to be an intern, the chances are you might get on, but you have a better chance if you can be proactive in saying what you can provide.
Mo, thanks for sharing those thoughts. Now, Di, go ahead and try again, please. Well, I almost hear it. Go ahead
Can
again.
you hear me?
Now we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Um, Thank you for speaking tonight. I really enjoyed this. I really like what you said about the niche because what I'm gearing toward is like the baby boomers as my niche. And where I live, it's like a lot of baby boomers, and it seemed like they're creating businesses. And baby boomers and small businesses because I'm working with a lot of traditionalists, pretty much a lot older than the baby boomers now, with the taxes and different things as well. So I really enjoyed what you talked about there.
Yeah.
Glad you did.
Thank you, Di, for sharing that. Um, Norman, if you're there, let's. Norman is joining us from Japan, and Norman, go ahead and try.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Yes? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Unger, for speaking. I like everybody else has said about the niching because here I am, like Harry said, I'm in Japan. I'm working with military members who most of them are young, and I'm trying to figure out where do I take this. Right now, I'm a contractor working for the military, but I know there's such a need to understand estate planning, tax planning, and all those things. So one of the reasons I took the CFP because I wanted more knowledge in order to do my job, but also to look down the road to the future. How can I create my niche to talk to these people because I was like them for 24 years. So thank you again for speaking on what you spoke on.
You're welcome. That would be a very satisfying niche. Those people can use help.
Well, Alan, I want to just conclude this evening by thanking you again, and it is always so appreciated. This was a most enjoyable and very valuable discussion. Things that we can all be thinking about, and sharing your story always makes it so real, and those takeaways. We can join you in that process. Thank you so much.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure, and I wish all of you luck.